The wine glass shattered against the marble floor, and everyone at Vanessa's engagement party turned to stare at me. My sister clutched Mark's arm, her face twisted in theatrical horror. "Tell them, Ella," Mark said, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "Tell everyone what you told me." Before I could speak, Vanessa screamed, "You tried to steal my fiancé." The room erupted in gasps. My mother pushed through the crowd, her eyes cold and disappointed. My father wouldn't even look at me. "Get out," my mother hissed. "Get out of this house." I stood there, frozen, as Mark smirked behind Vanessa's shoulder. 20 minutes earlier, I'd been helping arrange flowers in the kitchen. Now I was being thrown out of my own family's home. My hand shook as I grabbed my jacket. Nobody stopped me. Nobody asked for my side. That night, I realized something that would change everything. My family didn't just choose sides. They chose against me. And that was the beginning of my new life. My name is Ella Pierce, and my sister was my best friend until Mark showed up. Growing up, we shared everything: clothes, secrets, dreams about the future. Vanessa was always the golden child, the one everyone noticed first. She had this effortless charm that made people gravitate toward her. I was the practical one, the problem solver who kept things running smoothly. Our parents never said it out loud, but I knew. Vanessa was the star, and I was the supporting cast. I didn't mind, though. I loved my sister. When she got accepted into a prestigious art program, I helped her prepare her portfolio. When she struggled with statistics in college, I tutored her every night for 3 weeks. When she needed money for her first car, I emptied my savings account without hesitation. "You're too good to me," she used to say. I thought that meant something. Then Mark appeared at a gallery opening, and everything changed. Vanessa called me that night, breathless with excitement. "Ella, I met him. The one." Mark walked into our parents' house like he owned it. Tall, confident, with expensive clothes and a smile that seemed practiced in the mirror. He shook my father's hand firmly, complimented my mother's cooking before he'd even tasted it, and told Vanessa she looked stunning in front of everyone. I watched from the kitchen doorway as my family fell under his spell. "Ella, come meet Mark," Vanessa called, her eyes shining. I walked over, and Mark's gaze swept over me in a way that made my skin crawl. "Vanessa's told me so much about you," he said, holding my hand a second too long. "She didn't mention how beautiful you are." Vanessa laughed, but I saw a flash of something cross her face. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Mark found me cleaning up in the kitchen. "You're not like other girls," he said. "You're different." I moved away, uncomfortable. "Good night, Mark." But his words stayed with me, a warning I didn't yet understand. The text messages started a week later. At first, they seemed innocent. "Thanks for that book recommendation," or "Vanessa's lucky to have a sister like you." I responded politely, briefly. Then they got more personal. "Do you ever feel invisible in your own family?" one message read at midnight. I stared at my phone, unsure how to respond. Another message came through: "Sorry, that was inappropriate. Delete this." But I didn't delete it. Something felt wrong. When I showed Vanessa, she waved it off. "He's just being friendly." "You're overthinking." 2 days later, Mark started adding emojis. Winks, hearts, inside jokes I never agreed to. When I stopped responding, he sent paragraphs analyzing my silence. I finally confronted him at Sunday dinner. "Please stop texting me like that." Mark's eyes widened innocently. "Like what?" "I'm just trying to get to know my future sister-in-law." Vanessa touched his arm. "Ella's a bit sensitive sometimes." I felt my face burn. But that night, I noticed something. Mark had deleted every message he'd sent me. Family dinner became a minefield. Mark would say something that sounded complimentary but felt like a trap. "Ella's so quiet, isn't she? Always watching, always thinking." My parents would nod, missing the edge in his voice. Vanessa started changing around him. She'd laugh louder at his jokes, agree with everything he said, and correct me when I spoke. Actually, Ella, Mark says, became her favorite phrase. One evening, she pulled me aside, her eyes red. Mark told me something. He said you've been flirting with him. My heart stopped. What? Vanessa, no. I've been trying to avoid him. She crossed her arms. He showed me messages. Compliments you sent him. I never. Then I remembered. The responses I'd sent before I realized what he was doing. Short, polite replies that could be twisted out of context. Those weren't flirting. I was just being polite. But doubt had already planted itself in her eyes. At dinner that night, my mother asked me to give them space. Maybe you should visit less often, she said gently. Mark smiled into his wine glass. The job interview had been perfect. 3 rounds, glowing references, and the hiring manager practically offered me the position. We'll send the paperwork next week, she'd said. That was Friday. By Tuesday, the email came, we've decided to move forward with other candidates. I called, confused. The hiring manager sounded uncomfortable. Your references, we couldn't reach them. And there were some concerns about your professional history. Concerns? I'd never had a single complaint. I made calls. 2 of my references said they'd never received any inquiries. The third, my former supervisor, said someone from the company had called asking strange questions about my reliability. Something didn't add up. I did research. The firm was owned by a larger corporate group. When I saw the name of the parent company, my blood ran cold. Hartwell Industries. Mark's company. I sat in my tiny apartment, staring at my laptop screen. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't coincidence. Mark wasn't just manipulating Vanessa. He was systematically erasing me from every space I tried to occupy. I drove to Vanessa's apartment, determined to tell her everything. She wasn't home, but Mark answered the door. She's at yoga, he said. But come in. We should talk. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, but I needed to confront him. Did you sabotage my job? Mark closed the door behind me, his friendly mask slipping. You think very highly of yourself, don't you? Answer the question. He stepped closer. Here's the truth, Ella. You could have had this. You could have had me. But you were too proud, too cold. So I chose Vanessa. And now you have nothing. I backed toward the door. You're sick. I'm practical. And soon, your whole family will see what I see, a jealous, bitter woman who can't stand her sister's happiness. The apartment door opened. Vanessa stood there, yoga mat over her shoulder, staring at us standing close together in her living room. Mark's face transformed into shock. Vanessa, thank God. Ella just confessed she has feelings for me. The slap echoed through the apartment. My cheek burned as Vanessa screamed words I'd never heard her say before. Mark pulled her back, playing the concerned fiancé. I'm calling Mom, Vanessa sobbed. 20 minutes later, I stood in my parents' driveway while they told me I was no longer welcome at family events. Until you work through whatever this is, my father said quietly. My mother couldn't even look at me. I drove to a motel that night, then found a basement apartment I could barely afford. The walls were water-stained, the heating barely worked, and I could hear the landlord's television through the thin ceiling. I lay on the second-hand mattress and cried until there were no tears left. Then I made a decision. If no one would believe me, I'd build a life that proved I never needed them. I pulled out my old sketchbook, the one where I'd drawn house designs since I was 12. Vanessa used to say she'd be an interior designer someday. Well, I'd do it first. And I'd do it better. The community college offered night classes in design and architecture. I enrolled with the last of my savings, working temp jobs during the day. My instructor, Mrs. Rowe, was a retired architect who saw something in my work. You have an eye for sustainable living spaces, she said after reviewing my portfolio. Raw, but promising. She connected me with a small firm that needed a junior assistant. The pay was terrible, but I learned everything: drafting, client relations, budget management, building codes. I worked until midnight most nights, perfecting every assignment. Mrs. Rowe became my mentor, teaching me things no classroom could. Design isn't just about beauty, she'd say. It's about creating spaces where people can become their best selves. 6 months passed. I ate ramen, wore thrift store clothes, and saved every penny. Then Vanessa posted on social media, excited to announce my new venture, V.Pierce Designs. Follow my journey as I build my dream interior design brand. The post included one of my old sketches I'd left at my parents' house. She'd copied it, claimed it as her inspiration. I stared at my phone, rage building. Then I closed the app and got back to work. I could have exposed her. One post, one comparison of dates and files, and everyone would know she'd stolen my work. But something Mrs. Rowe said stopped me: revenge is noise. Success is silence until the moment it roars. So I stayed quiet. Let Vanessa believe she was ahead. Let her post her designs that were really just Pinterest compilations with her logo. I was learning the real work: load-bearing walls, sustainable materials, client psychology, how to turn a vision into blueprints that actually functioned. My portfolio grew with each project. Small at first, bathroom renovations and kitchen updates, but each one better than the last. I photographed everything, documented every success. Mrs. Rowe submitted my work to a design competition without telling me. I won 3rd place in the sustainable residential category. The prize was small, but the recognition opened doors. Then came the news: Vanessa and Mark were engaged. The announcement appeared on my phone at 2 in the morning. I deleted the notification without reading it. 3 days later, the invitation arrived at my apartment. But my name wasn't on the guest list. They were getting married at my parents' house, and I wasn't invited to my own sister's wedding. I wasn't supposed to be at the engagement party. But Mrs. Rowe had gifted me a beautiful dress and insisted I deserved one night to feel confident. I'd driven past my parents' house, not planning to stop, when I saw Vanessa through the window, looking stressed. Sisterly instinct kicked in. I knocked on the side door. She answered, surprised but relieved. The florist mixed up the centerpieces. Can you help? For 20 minutes, we worked side by side like old times, arranging flowers, laughing nervously. It felt almost normal. Then Mark appeared in the kitchen doorway. His expression changed when he saw me. Ella. What a surprise. Vanessa smiled. She's fixing the flowers. Isn't it beautiful? Mark pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. Absolutely beautiful. Vanessa, your mother needs you outside. Guest emergency. The moment she left, his mask dropped. You just can't stay away, can you? He held up his phone, showing Vanessa a fabricated text thread. Confession messages I'd supposedly sent him. I told you I'd win, he whispered. Then he started shouting. Vanessa. Vanessa, come here. Now. The party came crashing in. And that's when the wine glass shattered. I deleted every social media account. Changed my phone number. Moved to a city 3 hours away where nobody knew my story. For the first month, I felt like a ghost. No family, no friends, just me and my sketchbook in a studio apartment with a view of a brick wall. But something happened in that isolation. Without the weight of other people's expectations, I could finally breathe. I took business classes at night while working for a small architecture firm during the day. I learned about LLC formation, marketing, client acquisition, financial projections. I saved every dollar, living on basics. Mrs. Rowe checked in weekly, sending me leads and advice. You're building something real, she'd say. Don't rush it. A year passed. Then 2. I rarely thought about Vanessa anymore. When I did, it was with a strange detachment, like remembering a character from a book I'd once read. Then Mrs. Rowe called with news that changed everything. There's a startup accelerator program for sustainable design. They're funding innovative housing solutions. I submitted your portfolio. 3 weeks later, I stood in front of a panel of investors, presenting my vision for eco-friendly modular homes. They funded me. Arden Designs launched on a cold Tuesday morning. The name came from my middle name, the one only my grandmother used. It felt like a fresh identity, separate from the Pierce family drama. My first client was a young couple building their dream home on a tight budget. I designed them a beautiful, sustainable space using reclaimed materials and solar panels. They cried when they saw the final plans. Word spread. Architects started calling me for consultations. Design blogs featured my work. The Future of Sustainable Living one headline read, with photos of my projects. I hired 2 assistants, then 4. We moved into a real office with windows that overlooked the city. I was 28 years old and running a company that made $2 million in its first 18 months. The success felt surreal, like I was living someone else's life. Then came the email that made everything collide. A luxury real estate development firm wanted to discuss a major contract. They were owned by Hartwell Industries, Mark's company. The meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday. I had 6 days to prepare for the moment I'd see him again. He was already in the conference room when I arrived. Mark stood near the window, older, more tired-looking than I remembered. When he turned and saw me, his coffee cup paused halfway to his lips. "Hello, Mark," I said calmly. "It's been a while." His eyes widened, then narrowed as he processed my tailored suit, my confident stride, my leather portfolio embossed with Arden Designs. "Ella. I didn't realize, you're the designer?" "Owner and founder," I corrected, taking my seat. "Shall we discuss the project?" The meeting lasted 2 hours. Mark tried several times to undermine my proposals, questioning my experience, my timeline, my costs. But I'd prepared for this. Every objection, I countered with data, precedent, and calm professionalism. The firm's CEO, a sharp woman named Patricia Knowles, kept glancing between us, sensing the tension. Finally, she cut Mark off mid-sentence. "I think we've heard enough. Ms. Pierce, your proposal is exactly what we need. When can you start?" Mark's face went pale. "Patricia, perhaps we should review other options." She smiled coldly. "Your company needed this project to recover from last quarter's losses. Ms. Pierce just saved you. I'd suggest gratitude." I left that building walking on air. The contract was the biggest of my career. 15 sustainable homes for a luxury eco-community, each customized to the landscape. I threw myself into the work, designing spaces that balanced environmental responsibility with the elegance wealthy clients expected. Mark had to attend our weekly progress meetings. Each one, I watched him diminish further. His confidence eroded by my competence, his manipulation tactics useless in professional settings where everything was documented and witnessed. Patricia became an unexpected ally. After one meeting, she pulled me aside. "I did my research on you. Impressive trajectory for someone who started from nothing." I smiled. Sometimes nothing is the best foundation to build on. That night, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Ella?" Vanessa's voice was small, fragile. I need to talk to you about Mark." My heart rate spiked, but I kept my voice neutral. "What about him?" She was crying. "Things aren't, he's not who I thought he was. His company is in trouble. He's been lying about money. About a lot of things." I sat down slowly. "I'm sorry you're going through this. Can we meet? Please? Just to talk?" I looked at my calendar, my thriving business, my peaceful life. "I'll think about it." Vanessa looked different when I met her at the coffee shop. thinner, with dark circles under her eyes. Her designer handbag was from last season. Her engagement ring looked too heavy on her delicate finger. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly. I nodded, waiting. The words spilled out. Mark's company was failing. He'd taken out loans in her name. He controlled everything, her phone, her schedule, her friends. The design business she'd tried to start never happened because he convinced her she wasn't talented enough. "I found out about the job," she whispered. "The one you didn't get 3 years ago." He bragged about it during an argument. My coffee went cold as she continued. The emotional manipulation. The isolation. How he'd slowly convinced her that I was the villain in our family story. "I'm so sorry," she cried. "I chose him over you." I believed his lies. I sat there, processing. Part of me wanted to rage, to list every hurt, every betrayal. But looking at her broken expression, I felt something unexpected, exhaustion. "What do you want from me, Vanessa?" She looked up hopefully. "I need a job. I need to leave him. Can you help me?" I went home and thought for 3 days. Hiring Vanessa would mean inviting my past into my carefully constructed present. It would mean watching her, wondering if she'd changed, risking my peace. Mrs. Rowe called during my deliberation. "What does your gut say?" That helping her means stepping back into their storm. "Then what does your gut say?" she repeated patiently. I closed my eyes. "That I can't save her. She has to save herself." When I met Vanessa again, I brought resources, shelter information, legal aid contacts, job listings in other cities. "I can't hire you," I said gently. "But I can point you toward help. The rest has to be your choice." Her face crumpled. "I understand. I don't deserve your help anyway." "This isn't about deserving. It's about me protecting what I built." "I forgive you, Vanessa. But forgiveness doesn't mean letting you back in." She nodded through tears. As I stood to leave, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You'll regret crossing me, Ella." "I'll make sure of it." "Am I?" showed Vanessa. Her hands shook. "He's been tracking my phone. He knows I met you." That's when I knew Mark wasn't finished. And neither was I. The rumors started subtly. Anonymous online reviews claiming Arden Design stole concepts from competitors. Whispered concerns about my professionalism reaching Patricia's office. Emails to my clients suggesting they verify my credentials. Mark was trying to destroy me the way he'd tried before. But this time I was ready. Every design I'd created was documented with timestamps, drafts, and client approvals. Every contract was legally airtight. Every project had paper trails that proved my integrity. I hired a lawyer who specialized in corporate defamation. We traced the IP addresses of the negative reviews back to a computer at Hartwell Industries. The anonymous emails came from a proxy server, but my lawyer found the payment trail. Everything led to Mark. Instead of panicking, I gathered evidence calmly, methodically. When I had enough, I drafted a single statement and published it on my company website. No emotion, just facts. Recent false allegations have been traced to Mark Hartwell of Hartwell Industries. All claims have been documented and reported to appropriate authorities. Arden Design stands by its work and its integrity. I attached proof. Screenshots, technical reports, legal documentation. Then I sent copies to Patricia, to industry publications, and to Mark's board of directors. The response was swift. Hartwell Industries released a statement within 24 hours, distancing themselves from Mark's actions. Patricia called me personally. The board is conducting an investigation. Mark's been placed on administrative leave. 3 days later, Mark was terminated for conduct unbecoming of company values. The investors pulled their funding. His reputation in the industry was destroyed by the same whisper networks he'd tried to use against me. I felt no triumph, just relief. Vanessa called that night. He's saying terrible things. About you, about me, about everyone. He's falling apart. That's not your burden to carry anymore, I told her. Are you somewhere safe? I moved in with a friend. Filed for separation. It's hard, but I'm free. For the first time in years, I heard strength in her voice. 2 weeks later, an envelope arrived at my office. Inside was a formal letter from my parents. They wanted to meet. We've learned some things about Mark, my mother had written in shaky handwriting. We'd like to talk, if you're willing. I stared at the letter for a long time before finally picking up the phone. My childhood home looked smaller than I remembered. The garden my mother loved was overgrown. Paint peeled from the shutters. I parked in the driveway, my hands gripping the steering wheel. This was the house that had rejected me, the place where I'd been deemed disposable. But I was different now. I walked to the door and knocked. My father answered. He'd aged a decade and 3 years. Gray hair, stooped shoulders, eyes that couldn't quite meet mine. Ella. Thank you for coming. Inside, my mother sat on the couch, tissues in her lap. Vanessa was there too, looking nervous. The living room where I'd been exiled now felt like foreign territory. We sat in uncomfortable silence until my father spoke. Mark came to us last month. He was desperate, asking for money. He said things, made accusations about this family. We started questioning everything he'd told us about you. My mother's voice cracked. We called your old references. We spoke to Mrs. Rowe. We learned what really happened with that job. We learned a lot of things, my father continued. And we're ashamed. Ella, we chose to believe the worst about you without question. We owe you an apology that words can't adequately express. I listened as they explained their regrets. How they'd realized too late that Mark had manipulated them all. How they'd failed me as parents. My mother cried. My father's voice shook. Vanessa sat silently, letting them speak. When they finished, I took a breath. I appreciate this. I do. But I need you to understand something. I looked at each of them. I forgave you all months ago. Not because you asked, but because holding on to that anger was poisoning me. Forgiveness was my gift to myself, not to you. My mother reached for my hand. I let her take it, but I didn't squeeze back. But forgiveness doesn't mean things go back to how they were. I built a life without you. A good life. I can't go back to being the person who needed your approval to feel worthy. My father nodded slowly. We understand. We just hope that someday, there might be room for us in that life. On your terms. I stood up. Maybe. Someday. But right now, I need to protect my peace. As I walked to the door, Vanessa followed me outside. Ella, can I ask you something? I turned. My sister looked smaller than she used to, humbled by life in a way she'd never been before. Can we ever be sisters again? Vanessa asked. I leaned against my car, looking at the house where we'd grown up. I don't know. Right now, we're more like strangers who share a history. I deserve that. She wrapped her arms around herself. I don't expect you to trust me. I just want you to know I'm working on myself. Therapy, boundaries, figuring out who I am without someone controlling me. I saw genuine growth in her eyes. That's good, Vanessa. I mean that. Your company is incredible, she said. I've been following your work online. Those houses you designed won awards. You're doing everything I said I wanted to do, but you're actually doing it. You could still pursue design, I offered. Just do it authentically this time. She laughed bitterly. I don't have your talent. I never did. That's why I took your sketch. I was jealous of you my whole life, Ella. You were smarter, more creative, more capable. And I couldn't stand it. The confession hung between us. So you let someone destroy me instead? She flinched. I let someone tell me what I wanted to hear, that you were the problem, not me. It was easier than facing my own insecurity. I respected her honesty at least. Where do you go from here? Start over. Like you did. Maybe not design, but something real. I nodded. Then I wish you well, Vanessa. Genuinely. As I drove away, I watched her in the rearview mirror, standing alone in the driveway. It felt like closure, finally. 3 months later, I was invited to speak at the National Sustainable Design Conference. Standing backstage in my best suit, waiting to address 2,000 industry professionals, I thought about the girl who'd been thrown out of her family's house. The one who'd lived in a basement apartment and eaten ramen for a year. That girl would have been terrified. But I wasn't her anymore. My speech focused on resilience in business, overcoming obstacles, and building something meaningful from nothing. I didn't mention my family. I didn't mention Mark. But when I talked about turning rejection into motivation, I felt their presence in my story. Sometimes, I said, looking out at the audience, losing everything clears the path to become everything you were meant to be. The applause was thunderous. Afterward, during the reception, I noticed someone watching from the back of the room. Vanessa. She wasn't supposed to be there. Our eyes met across the crowd. She raised her hand in a small wave, then turned to leave. I caught up to her at the exit. What are you doing here? She smiled sadly. I wanted to see you speak. You were incredible, Ella. Everything I knew you could be. You didn't have to come. I know. But I'm proud of you. Even if I don't get to be part of your success, I'm proud. It was the most genuine thing she'd ever said to me. The award ceremony was held at a hotel overlooking the river. Arden Designs had been nominated for innovation in sustainable residential design. I wore a black dress that Mrs. Rowe had helped me choose, my hair styled simply, minimal jewelry. When they announced my name as the winner, I walked to the stage in a daze. The trophy was heavy and real in my hands. I looked out at the audience, colleagues, clients, competitors. People who respected my work because I'd earned it. 3 years ago, I had nothing. No support system, no resources, no clear path forward. But I had a vision and a stubborn refusal to let anyone else define my worth. I told them about starting over, about learning that success isn't about proving people wrong, it's about proving yourself right. Someone once tried to erase me, I said. They tried to make me invisible, disposable, forgettable. But in trying to destroy me, they freed me to become something they never anticipated, myself, completely. The standing ovation lasted 2 full minutes. As I left the stage, I spotted Vanessa again, standing in the back. She was crying, but this time they looked like tears of genuine joy. My new house sat on 3 acres outside the city. I'd designed it myself, floor-to-ceiling windows, sustainable materials, solar panels, a garden that Mrs. Rowe helped me plan. Every room told a story of reclamation. The office where I worked on new projects. The kitchen where I cooked for friends I'd chosen, not inherited. The bedroom with its view of the sunrise. I walked through it that first morning after moving in, coffee in hand, barefoot on the bamboo floors. This was mine. Built by my hands, my vision, my refusal to stay broken. My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa, enrolled in business classes. Starting small. Thank you for showing me it's possible. I smiled and replied, proud of you. My parents sent monthly emails now. I responded sometimes, brief but kind. We were building something new, slowly, without expectations. Mark's name appeared in the news occasionally, always attached to words like fraud investigation and bankruptcy. I felt nothing when I saw it, not even satisfaction. He was simply irrelevant. As I stood in my living room, surrounded by the life I'd built from ashes, I understood something profound. My sister had betrayed me for her boyfriend. But in losing her, I'd found myself. And now, I was everything she'd wanted to be. Not because I'd taken it from her, but because I'd built it from nothing. That was the real victory. Not revenge. Transformation.